All right, well, welcome to our public safety update for Q3 of 2025. This is going to be the last public safety update we have in the year 2025. We will have another one in January of 26 that will be an overarching view of Q4 of this year and then also the entirety of 2025. So it's going to follow a similar type of pattern if you've been to these updates before, and if you have not, I will try to explain them very briefly of how it's going to work today. So the purpose of these updates, we started these several years ago to make sure that our community and the media is up to date in terms of the state of violent crime and what the South Bend Police Department and the City of South Bend are doing to address crime in South Bend. We're going to talk about some of the strategies that we're implementing to help curb crime in our community, and then we're also going to talk about some events that we have coming up for the police department. Without further ado, because I always forget, or I forgot that one time and I can't forget that, I want to allow everyone at the table here to introduce themselves, and then I will allow the Mayor and Chief of Police to give some opening remarks.
My name is Dan Skibins. I'm the Assistant Chief for the South Bend Police Department.
James Mueller, Mayor of South Bend.
Scott Ruszkowski, Police Chief.
Kayla Miller, Captain of the Detective Bureau and Michiana Crime Stoppers Coordinator.
So, as you know, for those of you who have joined us before, you'll recognize the format and the issues that we address in these updates. Gun violence statistics, where we are, recruiting, where we are with that, traffic, and some of our other strategic initiatives. And if you've been coming to these for some time, you'll notice a similar trend that we've seen over the past couple years, where gun violence is continuing to come down overall for the year. Of course, the third quarter, that includes some of the warmer months, is oftentimes, unfortunately, where we do see an uptick for the year of gun violence. And so we certainly did see that again, that seasonality again this year. But nevertheless, if you look at the totality of it for the year, we're still, gun violence is down, and the homicide victims from gun violence is at the similarly low historic rate that we saw last year. So last year was a rate, it was the lowest since about 10 or 15 years, and was tied among the lowest of the last 20 years. And so we were obviously wanting to see what happened this year, because historically, when you had a low year, unfortunately, you had a bounce back the following year. So far, we have not seen that, fortunately, and so when you combine these 2 years, we're seeing very positive and encouraging trends. With that, I'll turn it over to Chief Ruszkowski.
Nope, you said it. I'll just echo, and then whatever he said, you can re-quote me on.
All right, so before we get into the presentation today, we just want to talk about some events and some announcements from our police department, and then we will get into the bulk of the presentation. Cops and Goblins is coming up in less than 3 weeks. We'll be back at Four Winds Field, and tickets will be available on Monday. I know a lot of people have been wondering when those will be available, but those tickets are free. We'll have about 7,000 to 8,000 tickets to hand out. We'll be back at Four Winds Field after spending a year at the Century Center. Should be a good time, 5 to 7:30, Tuesday, October 28th. Also, our Fall Citizens Police Academy, we just wrapped up with that this past Tuesday. We had our graduation from our Fall Academy. If you are interested in being in the next academy, that'll be in the spring, and we will release information about that in January. What it is it's a 9-week program where we invite members of the community to come in and learn more about the police department, learn about our different divisions, some of a behind the curtain look at how and why we do things here at the PD. Most people who attend say it's very valuable and they learn a lot of information, so we encourage anyone to sign up if they can. Lastly, from me, we have expanded our community resource office, our CROW team as we call it for short, with Officer Jalen Lee. He joined our team of CROWs, and they are responsible for nuisance properties, problem properties, and also have a big hand in community outreach and planning events for our department. So just wanted to put that information out there. We did announce that on social media a couple weeks back, but that was new for this quarter. So that team is continuing to grow, like many of our other teams, such as our Real-Time Crime Center, which we will talk about later today. But without further ado, I will pass it over to Chief Skibins.
I I get the first opportunity to use the Chief's charcuterie board of microphones, so starting us off with a update, or just a quick brief on our staffing. In order for us to have success with our crime suppression strategies, staffing is the most important thing for us, to have enough officers on our shifts and then to have enough officers in our specialty units to utilize those strategies. So happy to report that we're maintaining for the last 2 years right around 250 officers. Right now, or to close out Q3, we're at 247. We currently have 9 recruits at the Northern Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. They are scheduled to graduate in mid-November if the 9 are successful in completing all their testing. We also have 1 lateral that's just starting the process that's looking positive for us. Those 9 that are at the academy and the 1 lateral would be sworn on December 2nd, should they all pass, like I said, the remaining testing. We are looking to send, we had a very successful prospect day in August. We're looking to send 10 officers to the academy in January. We know that we're going to see retirements as we do every year in the first quarter, so preparing for that, I asked the training division to make sure that we have 10 qualified individuals to go to the academy. That will hopefully grow us to the mid-250s, where is our next goal to maintain in the mid-250s, because we've been maintaining around 250 for the last 2 years. Some ups and downs, well, we saw last year in December, we swore people on, we jumped up to about 256. So we just had a termination, so we're at 246 year to date right now, but we closed out Q3 at 247. That's all I have for a staffing update, and I think that next up we have Chief to go over some crime.
It does slide nicely.
Yeah.
Good work.
Yep, so just as a side note, this information, the data we have runs from January 1st of this year to September 30th of this year. The first category is gun violence incidents. I just want to be clear, these are any incident that involves a firearm. Doesn't mean it's a shooting, anything that involves, so it's a lot broader brush that's being portrayed here. So we had 449 gun violence incidents. During the same period last year, we had 508. The center is 44 criminal assault shooting victims. Last year, at this time, we had 52. Those do not include suicide, accidental, intentional self-inflicted, or self-defense ruled. And then the last shot there is, no pun intended, 430 guns recovered, and during the same period last year, we had 578 guns that were recovered. Next slide, as you can see that the center is pretty much what I had just told you, but during the same period last year, we had 52. We have 5 fatalities by gunfire to date, and the same period last year, we also had 5. The bottom one is group member involved, or GMI, 45.5% that we're looking at this year. Last year, we had 63.5%. I'm sure there'll be questions afterwards, and we'll try to answer those afterwards. I'll just give you a minute to look at the left part of the slide and jot notes if you need to ask questions about those at the end. I think Kayla is next. Well, I know Kayla's next, but I just want to, before she starts, I just want to remind people, especially if you haven't been here before, then this is the first time hearing it. Every murder is a homicide, but not every homicide is a murder. So when you see the numbers that she's about to explain, take that into consideration.
Thanks, Chief. Now I don't have to say it. Homicide investigations are sitting at 8, and again, this is year to date, so this is January 1st through year to date. 8 homicide investigations. There are 2 rule justified, 1 reckless, and 5 in that murder category. Of those, we have 1 that remains open, and that would be a murder investigation. There's 14 total death investigations, and we have 5 murder victims year to date. We'll pause for that, and then I'll move on. All right, for Michiana Crime Stoppers, this is just Q3 numbers. 52 cases were resolved in Q3, $300 worth of property and or narcotics recovered, $5,100 in rewards authorized, a total of 36 arrests due to tips through Michiana Crime Stoppers, and 1 firearm recovered in Q3. And I think back down
Sliding again there, Mayor.
to Chief Skibins.
All right, the next slide is traffic enforcement. I've talked about this in great detail. Post-COVID, we saw a real problem in the city of South Bend with dangerous driving. We had stunt lines, we had street takeovers, and we heard from our city leaders, council members, and from the community that they wanted something done about it. So building back our staffing was important to be able to do that. Adding officers to the shift so that they could maintain on every shift in patrol traffic enforcement officers. We now run 2 traffic cars on each shift, and I've pushed those traffic cars to produce more and more and set higher goals for them. And as you can see in Q2 and Q3, we saw a pretty significant increase in traffic stops made. When we started this, our department was averaging 20 to 25 stops a day, and now we're approaching 50 stops. We have to find through a deeper dive, we'll be able to determine if that's having the impact that we want, but we need more data to do that. So the next slide shows you one of the things that we can look at to see if we're having success, and this is collisions in the city. We are down 2.27% in traffic crashes through the 3 quarters that the chief and I have been discussing. And then fatalities are actually up, but that is such a small number. If you just have a slight uptick, that's why we're seeing the large percentage in increase in fatalities due to traffic crashes. Below that, you see injuries and accidents, and that is approaching a 2% decrease. So at the end of this year, actually, if we can move on to the next slide, at the end of this year, doing a deeper dive into where we're performing those traffic stops, and how they compare to the intersections that we need to focus on where we saw the most accidents. It'll help us adjust our resources. Do we need more traffic cars? Do we need to make more traffic stops in those specific areas? That top right corner shows you through 3 quarters of this year the intersections that have the most accidents. The bottom right corner is what we specifically asked our officers to start 2025 to focus on those based on 2024 data. So as I said, the more data we have, the better, so that we can adjust our resources and ask officers to move to other intersections that we're seeing an uptick. 3 of those intersections from 2024 we've seen an improvement in. Unfortunately, 3 of them we've seen some of those crashes go up a bit. So some adjustments will likely be needed in Q4 and into Q1 of 2026. The next slide is, I've gone into great detail about Fusus as well in the past, so we can jump past that slide to the next one. It's the platform and technology that we utilize in our real-time crime center. It brings all of our solutions together. So flock license plate readers, integrated cameras through businesses, our own city cameras, as well as shot spotter gunfire detection. All of that through Fusus, our real-time crime center analysts can utilize to help with crimes that are taking place in real time. And even after the crimes have occurred, requests come into our real-time crime center to work on those cases. They can go back and look at footage, see any cameras in the area that might help investigators in solving their case. You can see we have a huge uptick in the number of Fusus usages through 3 quarters at 405, and that's compared to 163 through 3 quarters last year. A big part of that is increasing our staffing in the real-time crime center. We budgeted in 2024 for an increase in 2025, and we've added a couple new crime analysts in the real-time crime center. Still looking for 1 more, so if you know anyone interested, we'll be interviewing soon for that. So once we have that full staffing, I certainly expect our numbers to continue to grow there. Chief's going to talk briefly about a few highlights that we've had that have been very important to us and show the successes that we can have with our real-time crime center. A couple of those incidents happened just recently.
Yep. So we plucked 4 success stories out of here because I think it really emphasizes the work that they do. You heard Dan give the numbers over 400. I think that Bree and Josie, who are sitting in back from our real-time crime center, so should you need to talk to them afterwards, there they are. They're very humble, but phenomenal work that they, and their staff perform back here. The first one was a shooting at Maple Lane Apartments. When the call came in, they leapt into action. They were able to identify somebody running from the scene, track that person to a car, direct our officers to that car. A pursuit ensued, and then subsequently, the ending of it was we recovered a firearm in that. And if Kayla wants to talk further about that case, maybe she can afterwards. But that was a immediate leap into action and success from that component. The next one was a armed robbery that had happened at the Charles Black Center. Same thing. They got a video of the incident. They identified the vehicle. Officers located the vehicle. They conducted a search warrant, and a firearm was located, and subsequently the bad person was arrested. The next one was a shooting near Bowman and Miami Streets. Yet again, the same thing. They locate the suspect vehicle, they identify it, locate it, and pass down the information, directed the officers where to go. They found the vehicle and also conducted a search warrant on the vehicle. Again, this is another case based on Captain Miller's comfort level of discussing it. And the last one that we plucked out was somebody escaped from the Newcomb Center after they were being transported to the hospital. They were able to get the description from dispatch as it was put out, and again, they hit the cameras and led officers to where the escapee was and was no longer an escapee. Oh, it's back down to Dan. Sorry, Dan.
I'm liking the slide.
Yeah, way better.
All right, flock license plate readers have been a huge asset throughout our country to law enforcement. We have also seen those successes, as the chief just went over a couple highlights that just occurred recently with our real-time crime center utilizing license plate readers in real time and not just helping us to solve crimes later, but they certainly have that impact as well, and you'll see that on the next slide. There are 128 flock assists so far this year. That compares to 114 last year. Those will again continue to grow without us adding more cameras. We haven't added more flock cameras in the last year and a half to 2 years, but utilizing our real-time crime center more often, and the officers becoming more comfortable with Fusus and being able to look up some of this stuff for themselves. But 128, and you see there were 3 incidents with homicide investigations that flock helped us with as well. We saw those successes early on when we launched license plate readers, but happy to see that we're continuing to solve or utilize the information from license plate readers to help us solve homicide investigations. And the last slides that I have would be resource router. Again, something that I've talked about in great detail, so I'll try to just breeze through this. This is a technology that we utilize to put our officers in the spots where they're needed most. It's based on reports that are filed daily. So each shift comes on, and the reports that were filed before their shift go into a sophisticated algorithm. The computer generates missions for those officers in the respective areas that they work, and they have to spend time in those areas. This system also has an accountability feature, so our sergeants and lieutenants can look at those missions on the spot while they're working their shift to see if the officers are spending time where they're needed most. We have our system slanted towards gun violence because that's a serious issue that we've had over the last 10 years. And I strongly believe that Resource Router has been beneficial and helped us reduce crime, because community members were telling me at meetings that they weren't seeing officers after shootings had occurred. And this goes back to pre-COVID years. And once we launch this, we go to those same meetings and the community members are telling us, thank you for having officers out there. The chief and I don't even know officers were out there. They're getting these missions that are not directed from the chief's office. They're directed from the computer system of Resource Router. And the next slide will show you that we've maintained over the last 2 years 98 to 99% completion rate on those missions. I've talked about how many missions before, 4 sides of town here, 6 missions per shift. There's 3 shifts in the city of South Bend, and that's where you come up with the number of 72 missions per day. So a fantastic job by our officers spending time where they're needed most.
Okay, before we turn it over to the Q&A section, I just want to touch on a couple events coming up just to wrap things up. We have a Cops and Community event tonight with Notre Dame Federal Credit Union. We've been on a good schedule with them about every other month throughout various parts of town that we ask residents to come out and meet us. Tonight is pizza, so if you don't feel like cooking dinner, come on out to that location. All the information will be on our Facebook page as well. Also, our monthly community crime stat meetings, we're continuing those, and we just had one last night. And Cops and Goblins, I already mentioned that. And also, a lot of people are already looking forward to the holiday season. As you know, we partner with FOP 36 for the Santa's Officers Program. Those applications will open a couple days after Thanksgiving, so be on the lookout for that. But with that, I will turn it over to the audience for any questions that we may have from this presentation.
I heard from a resident at the Foundry. They were saying that a letter was sent to residents about 16 South Bend police officers that are working the night shifts, and at the Foundry and at Eddy Street Commons, some of those officers will be working in shifts of 2 to 3 to monitor that area. I'm not necessarily asking for you guys to confirm or deny those numbers, but we have heard from the community about some concerns that police officers will be pulled off of their night shifts and kind of allocated to that area. I was wondering, any comments about that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question because that seems to be some point of contention, especially on social media. Don't know if you follow, but I've responded multiple times. Even comments made by county elected officials that should not have happened. All they had to do was ask. Yes, there are officers that work out there. They are part-time officers, meaning they're hired by a private entity and paid by a private entity. We do have, and I won't discuss strategies and tactics, but we do have and will continue to send the necessary resource officers that we have working on an as-needed basis. Whatever the amount that the private entities have or decide to have, that runs through the FOP. So I approve part-time jobs, every single one of them that are put through. This is one of them that I've also approved. So that's obviously based on the availability and the willingness of the officers to work them. The exact amount, I know I've approved probably 70 officers, maybe even more than that, to work that area specifically or businesses within that area specifically. So if they want to, they can, but that is not anything that taxpayers foot the bill for.
Or impact our shift strength.
Yeah, the shift strength remains the same.
I guess following up on that, then with the recruitment goal, you guys said you want 250 officers at least. So in terms of that, is that also part of that goal is to then allocate some more police officers to the Eddy Street Commons area?
No. These are everything that we have going on based on the community needs and even wants. The things that we're doing, we added an extra person, Officer Lee, to our Crows. We're adding to our drug gang and strategic focus unit, strategic intel, detective bureau needs some more folks in there to handle some things that as we move along, as we see what we see and know what we know, we also have, as you heard multiple times, AI and technology intervening to help us out and able to guide us for the proper resources. So I don't think we've ever had a comfortable level. I hate to say that word, but we've been flowing back and forth 247 to 250, and you've seen the results of us doing that. So that is our goal, to try to get that. Nothing to do with any specific area. Our resources are deployed where we need them. Again, based on technology, based on AI, and based on human being, meaning police officers' experience.
I have another question about Eddy Street. So I know since in the past month we've talked a lot about that, what police are doing to kind of ramp up enforcement there and try and help out the other officers that are working on Eddy Street. Would you say the new police methods are working?
Well, it's like 102,000 calls a year in South Bend. Nobody in this room ever asks questions when you don't know anything. So if there's a couple things that occur, that's what's focused on. So I will tell you 20, 30, maybe even more thousand people, to your question of Eddy Street Commons, nothing ever happens. But one incident or two do happen, that's what seems to be focused on. We are constantly reviewing our deployment and other technologies and methods that we're using to try to keep anything from happening there at all. Nothing in police work is a guarantee. Nothing on earth is a guarantee. But we're doing what we can, how we can, the best we can with what we have.
And, I mean, this isn't a full police issue. Police have been very successful at addressing issues. You know, we learn from behavior. Behavior evolves and adapts, and then we have to learn how to address that. But oftentimes, it's the property owners and the people, the businesses have to figure out what to do to prevent the situations from escalating. And so you've seen some of that at Eddy Street, and that's where you're seeing them hire some of their own security to make sure that their businesses and their property is maintained. So, and there are different things that you learn behavior and you adapt to it, and then again, they'll you know, folks that are trying to drive some of this chaos will then find a new place, and you know, that's unfortunately the reality. And you know, our officers will work with the new place to figure out an effective strategy to keep that place safe as well. And so that's, you know, the reality of the you know, the challenge that they face, but it's generally not, you know, people want to point fingers. We're not trying to point fingers, but it's generally not a lack of resources or a lack of, you know, police department attention. It's generally figuring out how do you work with the property owner to develop an effective strategy to keep it safe.
And this is not just, I get the focal point, but that, because everybody's just asking questions that, why Eddy Street Commons? Why are you just deploying there? And that is absolutely the furthest from the truth. We have not lessened any resources anywhere else in the entire city. As a matter of fact, Dan just pointed out that we have our resource router. You saw where we're doing our focused traffic stop areas on. To keep those crashes and things from happening, people from getting hurt or killed in traffic. This is happening all over the city. Nothing has been pulled from anywhere else. Matter of fact, we meet every single Thursday with all area agencies up to federal and state prosecutors. We discuss strategies for the coming week and things that happened in the previous week. So this is, and that's, I'm not even counting the internal. We meet as a command staff every Tuesday. So we have ducks in a row when it comes to resource deployment. It is not just one thing. That's the only thing people are asking about. There is no area in this city that we have ignored to take away resources to put them towards Eddy Street Commons. None.
I know Mayor Mueller just mentioned private businesses working, you know, on their own to do things to increase safety. As police, what's your advice to private businesses, whether on Eddy Street or not, when hiring private security? Is there a certification or license that they should be looking for? Yeah,
that's a private business, and that's their business. Advice: we're not attorneys, we're not anything else. We're police officers. That's on them what they choose to do with their business, and if things happen or don't happen, that's for them to answer for, not us.
But, I mean, we are happy to be in a full staffing level in which some of our officers have the bandwidth to be able to work part-time jobs outside of the city.
Yeah.
And so a few years ago, that just wouldn't have been possible given the staffing shortages and people not having that bandwidth to take up these kind of things.
Yeah. Did I interpret your question correctly? You're talking about them having other resources other than South Bend police officers working part-time. Okay.
I have one last question about Eddy Street Commons. So do you have shot spotters or flock cameras on Eddy Street or around that area?
Again, strategies and tactics and technologies I won't go into, because that has an overall effect on not just our community members, but our officers as well.
We have flock cameras across the entire city,
yes,
is fair to say, and we also have, with the Real-Time Crime Center, have additional cameras across the city, and this is in the city, so there are cameras there.
There's been a lot of children that have gotten in the crossfire of gunshots over the past couple of months. Most recently, a 4-year-old, I believe, was caught. Are these cases being handled any differently? Is there anything really going on to prevent these? I know it's difficult, time and place. There's no way to tell when it's going to be happening, but.
Yeah, so 2 points here. Number one, I'm gonna slide it to Kayla, and I think it's if you're comfortable, Kayla, giving maybe some updates on a couple, because good news, I think it's good news. It's too bad it happened, sickening that it happened, but there is good news in this. And like I said before she says anything, our officers are treating every one of these as if a family member. So it's a 12-year-old, 8-year-old, 4-year-old, 1-year-old. That's one of our kids too.
So one thing to remember is that when we give an update initially, we have limited information, and so we're going on what is relayed from dispatch and what we have at the scene at the time. So initially, we did report that a 4-year-old was the victim of a gunshot wound. Ultimately, it was determined through our investigation that she did not suffer a gunshot wound, so that is positive news. However, we still treat that case as if we were working a gunshot wound to a 4-year-old. So that continues to remain a high priority for our violent crimes unit, which they still will handle that case. So to your point, yes, it's a high priority case for us. So that's, I think, is important to say. That would not count for a criminally assaulted shooting number for statistic purposes.
An 8-year-old.
Oh, you want to talk about the 8?
I think you should give a
Okay, so we're going to talk about the 8-year-old that was recently shot. Just for a prognosis on that, I know that got quite a bit of attention, but we do have good news that she is continuing to progress well. And so that is something that we are very happy for. And I think I'll just leave it at that for the family's sake.
Yeah, this isn't investigative things on pieces of paper and doing whatever. These detectives and some of our other officers have maintained constant contact, and we've been getting the prognosis from the family, and you have no idea what it means to get the good news, and we didn't think it was going to have the outcome so far that it has. So investigative is one thing, but caring about another human being, especially a child, is totally something else. When you put those two together, that's why you have the case resolutions that you do here.
Following up on a couple earlier questions, in light of these cases involving children, is there any advice you would give, not to private businesses, but to families?
Well, I mean, we've seen guns get into the wrong hands time and time again. And so, especially if you're a parent and you have a gun, make sure that the gun is stored away securely. Also, make sure that you're checking your kids' rooms if they had gotten a gun from someone else. The key is to keep the guns out of the wrong hands and prevent these tragedies before they happen.
Yeah, and clearing up the misnomer, I have always said, have never wavered from it, parents, family, friends, one or the other or some combination of knows that these kids are running around with guns. So people seemingly want to relegate this to blaming the parents. I have never said that. The accountability portion, be in your kid's business. I have grown kids and I'm still in their business. I know where they are, I know what they're doing. Is that 100% guarantee that that's exactly what's happening? No. But if I'm in their business, I'm looking through their backpacks, I'm checking in their rooms, I'm checking in their vehicles, absolutely. If I can do it, anybody can.
Any idea that you can share about where these firearms that are being recovered are coming from?
Well, did you want to address that? Or, okay. We're still working with, obviously, local and federal partners to get something that we can concrete say of they're coming from location X. No, impossible. Vehicle break-ins, house break-ins, coming from other states, maybe to the west of us, contrary to what's been said that they're getting from the east of them. Noticing more and more that is occurring from surrounding areas. The black market in general, the dark web, you name it, kids especially are very resourceful. And unfortunately, there's a will to find the way. If we can get rid of the will to find it, we wouldn't need the way.
just have one clarifying question back to Saturday's case of the 4-year-old. You said she wasn't injured by a gunshot. Was it as a result of a gunshot, or?
So she was not struck by a bullet.
Okay, but she was still injured as a result of the gunfire.
So yes, there were shots fired at that location due to the shots fired. So it should still be an issue for our community, right? There were shots fired. She was there. As a result of those shots being fired, we have a 4-year-old who was injured.
At the beginning, Mayor Mueller mentioned that gun violence for the year is down. Surprising because you expected it to bounce up after last year. Do you have any idea at this point why that's the case, or do you still think that?
Well, this is always the question if it goes up or if it goes down. You know, there are national trends that we can't. Nobody can explain exactly why the trends happen, and we do. You know, most cities are. That's kind of the base, what's happening nationally. So nationally, the trends have been down the past few years. Obviously, they had gone up pretty remarkably during the pandemic years. And so there's that piece. But then there are the things that, you know, what makes us different than other cities. And if you look at when we say last year was a historically low homicide year for us, and so far this year we're following that instead of having a bounce back. I mean, I do think the strategies that we've talked about today have worked. You know, obviously we've gone in this period of time. We've gone from being significantly understaffed to being fully staffed. We have the technology now to track and make sure our officers are going to, you know, we have limited resources. Officers can't be on every corner 24/7, but if they're being directed with the officers we do have, getting them to the places that are the most effective at deterring incidents, you know, that's been a help for sure. And then, you know, since we've taken over the homicide investigations, we have been solving homicides at well above the national average. You know, national average is hovering around 50 or so percent, and we've been closer in the 80s. Some years we've been 100%. This year we only have one open case currently, and so you know, all of these things come together. You know, the reality is a small number of individuals drive a vast majority of the violence. And our ability to either deter them or find them and figure out how to hold them accountable. I mean, we don't talk about that here in this update, but we also have a group violence intervention program that goes and, you know, we identify those driving the violence and we go talk to them, try to get them on a better path. And then, of course, if they don't, we do have a strategic focus unit that focuses on these groups and holds them accountable. So I would say, there's not one thing that's making that possible. It's a lot of things coming together, and obviously national trends matter, and so that's been good for us. That nationally it's gone down, but also these strategies seem to be working as well.
Don't forget you got Bree and Josie back there if you want to talk to them afterwards.
Any other questions before we wrap up? Thank you, everybody.